A very good morning to everybody. I, Dr. Mausham Bhattacharya, Assistant Professor and HOD, Department of Human Physiology at Government Degree College, Dharmanagar in Tripura, on behalf of the Faculty of Biological Sciences of our college, would like to welcome our respected resource person, Dr. Anupma Harshal Wadavlikar, our respected Principal Sir, Sri Gautam Das, all beloved students, young researchers, respected teachers, academicians, and science enthusiasts attending this virtual online session on how to read scientific literature and introduction to Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative, which is a citizen science project of the Government of India funded by the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, in collaboration with the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, IISER Pune, the National Center for Cell Sciences, NCCS, and Persistent Systems. Well, we would be much happier if we could have welcomed and meet you all at our beautiful college campus, which is located in the naive and pristine, lush green outskirts of the subdivision town of Dharmanagar. There are many beautiful places near around our small town, Dharmanagar. But nevertheless, as we all know, that due to this COVID pandemic, all our educational institutes are running through online mode. Hence, we have no other option rather than to conduct the session virtually. Dear participants, the session will be deliberated by one of the renowned consultant and expert in science communication and public engagement, Dr. Anupma Harshal Wadavlikar of IISER Pune. I am sure that this interactive session will help in training the ignited minds of the students and also other participants who are considered as the large pool of scientifically literate population in India on how to understand, extract, and collate information from the huge amount of scientific literature which is available nowadays. The session will also help us in familiarizing ourselves with Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative, which is aimed for constructing a comprehensive map of the entire human body and help design better therapeutic targets for treating diseases like cancer, diabetes, and also help us in combating against future pandemics like the COVID-19. So without any further delay, I would like to request our respected principal, Sir, Sri Gautam Das, to inaugurate the session with his kind words. Sir, the platform is now yours.
I think he can easily unmute and start his video. Yeah,
yes. Namaste.
Namaste. Yeah.
Good noon to all. Respected Coordinator, Dr. Mausham Bhattacharya, Assistant Professor, Government Degree College, Dharmanagar, Tripura, respected Secretary, Teachers Council, and Assistant Professor of Government Degree College, Dharmanagar. The only speaker, resource person is Dr. Anupma Harshal W., Consultant, Science Communication and Public Engagement, Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative. All participants, my colleagues and dear students, welcome you all on today's training cum workshop program with the topics how to read scientific literature and introduction to Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative, jointly organized by Faculty of Biological Science, Government Degree College, Dharmanagar, Tripura, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, National Center for Cell Sciences, NCCS, and Indian Institute of Education, Science, Education and Research, Pune, IISER. Government Degree College, Dharmanagar, Tripura is very much thankful to DBT, NCCS, and IISER for choosing our college as venue of the said digital training cum workshop under the project Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative. Manav is a Human Atlas Initiative toward improving knowledge on human physiology The project would very useful for students because it would utilize the large biological community for extracting and aiding the information from scientific literature of cell and organs. The project would help to identify the gaps in current knowledge and help in future projects in diagnostics and diseases biology. Our invited speaker, Dr. Anupma Harshal ma'am, will highlight how to read scientific literature and introduction of Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative. She will guide the participants regarding the importance of reading a correct research article and how to access research article, etc. With these few words, I announce the inauguration of this digital this training program will benefit, will update the knowledge of all UG, PG students and researchers as well as academics. So, special thanks to Madam Dr. Anupma Harshal W for sharing her valuable time with us in this program. Thank you, ma'am, once again. And I conclude my speech wishing everyone good health. Thank you once again. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir, for your encouraging words in this inauguration of this session. Well, now I feel privileged to introduce to all of you our resource person for the session, Dr. Anupma Harshal Wadavlikar. Dr. Anupma is presently engaged with Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative at IISER Pune. She is a renowned educator with a teaching expertise of 19 years and a certified trainer for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM teachers who are undergoing training on research-based pedagogy. She was a joint University Grants Commission, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, UGC-CSIR scholar, and had accomplished her doctoral thesis from the Hindustan Liver Research Center in collaboration with the prestigious Topiwala National Medical College and PYL Nair Hospital in Mumbai. She adds to her credit 11 research projects and have received funding from the Mumbai University, University Grants Commission, and other private labs. During her tenure, she was an articulate member of the grant applications of the Star College Department of Biotechnology funding, the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, or NAC, and has been the coordinator of the Science Honors Program and Innovative Undergraduate Research Initiative. She has contributed to several regional research-based pedagogical tools, or RPBT, workshops across the country as a subject expert and observer, which are funded by the Department of Biotechnology, Department of Science and Technology, and the Center of Excellence in Science and Mathematics in Education, or COSME, at IISER Pune. She is a reviewer for several international journals and has also reviewed a few books on pedagogy. She has contributed to the coursework for MBA program in waste management, BBA program in wash and nutrition by the Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education, or MGNCRE, under the Ministry of Human Resource and Development of Government of India. She has also written a book on Foldscope and its applications. She is also a recipient of the Indo-US Foldscope grant funded by the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. And dear participants, the most interesting part of her career is that among her co-scholastic interests include Kathak dance. So you can imagine, and she has received several recognition and awards. So not only she's in excellence in her academic career, but also in Kathak dance she has contributed a lot. So dear participants, I'm sure you will be glued to your screens when such an eminent person is speaking. And with these words, I would like to invite our resource person, Dr. Anupma Harshal Wadavlikar, to start the session. Madam,
you so
I
much.
welcome you once
Yeah.
again to
Thank
start
you.
the session on this virtual platform.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gautam Das. Thank you so much to your college, both the academic and the non-teaching staff for having facilitated this session. And let me tell you, you have an amazing staff headed by, I think the School of Biosciences is headed by Dr. Mosham, a very, very elite scientist of the country. And I'm so proud that he's serving you and your college. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Mosham, for all the coordination, because even in the online mode, sometimes things get very difficult. So hoping that you have an enjoyable interactive session and there are lots of learnings to take home. So this is just to inform all the participants that the session is being recorded, and we will also be taking photographs at the end. So if you have any problem, do keep us informed. You can decide not to participate by turning off your video. So let us begin on the backdrop of what is information versus knowledge, right? So we all know that we are all surrounded by meaningful content, and this meaningful content could be related to science and technology. It could be related to therapeutics, to medicine, to general administration. So then your next question will be, what is knowledge? Yes, if we are surrounded by meaningful content and that is information, then what is knowledge? Whenever an expert or whenever somebody who has experience critically distills out specific points from this general information, then it becomes knowledge. So students, my teacher friends, where do you get your knowledge from? You get your knowledge from your teachers. You get your knowledge from your research guides, from your research mentors, your academic advisors, and also from textbooks. Your teachers are experts in their subjects. They have domain knowledge. They are very well read, and textbooks are written based on research papers. So this is something that I want you to remember while I'm going through my talk. Okay. So where do you get your information from? Well, social media handles, newspapers, public databases, and right now our condition is like that of the child, right, who's waiting on the phone for some good news to come, that the pandemic is over, colleges are beginning, we're all going to meet each other. Let me tell you, right now the general administration has banned any COVID related information to be transmitted or posted on social media handles. Why? Because they want you to go to sites which are well curated. That means sites of WHO, CDC, ICMR, India Biosciences, and more. These sites have information that is backed with evidence. I'm sure you all remember when the pandemic started, we had, a lot of myths saying that the virus will be inactivated in winter, virus will be inactivated in summer, but nothing of that sort happened. So we were looking for evidence-backed information, and that is what is called as well curation. So information is not knowledge, but experience is knowledge. And all the rest falls in the domain of being called as information. Now, let me inform you, I will be asking you a few questions. However, if you have any questions pertaining to any of my slides, please use the chat window and put out your questions, and I will be addressing them towards the end of the session. So when you use a public database like Google, what is missing? Well, the word is curation. Like I told you, every word that I use in my talk, I will be highlighting or letting you know, but I will also ask your opinion. So what is this word curation? Well, the selection of accurate content. What is this accurate content? Whenever you order something online, have you noticed that your inbox is flooded with advertisements of the same or similar product? That means somebody backend is selecting appropriate or accurate information and giving it to you. This is called as curation. Let me give you a more specific example. So I want to buy a mobile phone. You know what I do? I go to Google and I say, Google, can you help me buy a mobile phone? And you know what Google does? Google gives me two types of sites. One are blog sites and the other are vendor sites. On these blog sites, I get information related to what is the processing of the camera that is available for a particular handset, what is the storage capacity, how good that phone is, how cost effective it is, what are the features it's offering. On the vendor sites, what happens? It gives me several filters. And what are these filters? These filters are, what is the price of the phone I want to buy? What is the camera resolution I'm looking for? What is the storage capacity I want? And so on. When I'm able to define these filters, it helps me select a phone which fits in my budget and which has the necessary features. This, my dear friends, is called as curation. So I'm sure you're ready for the definition. The selection, organization, and presentation of online content, merchandise, information, typically using professional or expert knowledge, is called as curation. So we talked about curation, we are defining curation, and we'll try and understand where we are going to use this. Now, as a researcher, as an academician, it's my duty to tell you that many of you will make your careers in research and development, product formulation, and even in a field called as data science. So what is data science? Data science involves data mining, data wrangling, data curation. So what is this data curation? It is the active and ongoing management of data through its life cycle of interest and usefulness to scholarship, science, and education. This includes appraisal and selection, representation, and organization of this data, for use over time. Now, this could be like I've already said, in science or in education. So this could be one of the avenues which is of interest to you, and you're wanting to make a place for yourself here. So do a coursework in this wherever you are after a BSc or after an MSc or during the course of your PhD, and you will be ready to be taken up in the field of data sciences. So here goes my first question. Okay. And my first question to you is as follows. Have you heard of the term peer review? Have you heard of the term peer review? And do you think peer review is a form of curation, in science? Is it related to curation in science? Now, let me tell you, participants, there are about 230 of us here. This is an anonymous poll. So I'm not going to know who gave the right answer, who gave the wrong answer. The purpose of putting these polls or this interactive mechanism is to get you to think, not make you feel bored, and also to help me build my slides in the forthcoming, in my talk, so that I can, give you that information if there are any specific doubts. So I'm going to keep this poll on for a minute. Have you heard of the term peer review? And do you think peer review is a form of curation in science? If you're a little shy for holding the poll, answering in the poll, you have something more to add, you can always use the chat window to dash out your answer to me. Okay. So I'm keeping both the chat window, the poll, and everything on over my desk. So not bad. About 40% of us have voted on this. So I'm stopping the poll here, and I hope you can see the results. That about 83% of you have said, those of you who have participated have said yes, peer review is a form of curation in science, and 17% have said no. Now, please don't worry. I am going to be discussing the answer here in detail. Thank you, Gahin. Gahin says, yes, this is a mode of curation in science. So let me tell you what is this process of peer review. In peer review, the text that you write about your research findings, your experiences, or your observations, you send it to a publishing desk. And the publishing desk then sends it to an expert who validates what you have written and then allows it to go out in the public domain so that it can be trusted. So do you think curation is important? Well, I think yes, because it helps you evaluate the quality of scientific data, and it also ensures better access to the best scientific data. Okay. So what about Wikipedia? Do you think Wikipedia is curated? Yes. And if Wikipedia is curated, by whom is it curated? At every point, if you can, I'm just hoping that you can see my slides and you can hear me. Okay. By whom is it curated? Well, Wikipedia is curated by anyone from anywhere. And do you see a problem with this? Well, personally speaking, I do see a problem here. Why? Because I may be a certified content writer for Wikipedia, but I may not be an expert botanist or an epidemiologist or a DNA barcoding expert, but I may be writing content based on my experiences. Okay. So what is the problem when you have a source like this? Well, don't believe everything that I am saying, but this is the Wiki disclaimer for you. I hope you all can see point number 6. Point number 6 clearly says that we do not expect you to trust us. Where does that leave us? Well, there are other points also below it, point number 7, 8, 9, 10, but we're not going to discuss that. But what happens when you cannot trust the source from where you're getting the information? Well, the quality will vary from time to time and from article to article. Now, because Wikipedia will, can be edited by, anyone at any time, it will be, there will be changes which will happen from time to time and from article to article. Now, because it can be edited by anyone at any time, the articles may be prone to errors. However, there are helpful external links which are present at the end of the article. And that is what you can refer to if you want to get the accurate information. So what do you think? Would Albert Einstein use Wikipedia? scientists use Wikipedia? Where do major breakthroughs and minor breakthroughs in science get published? Well, the answer is scientific journals. So here are a few scientific journals that I have taken: Cell, Nature, Science. This is also to tell you that there are journals in pedagogy, there are journals in psychology, there are journal in economics, there are journals in, microfinancing. So there are a lot of, subjects where there are journals that are catering to giving you published content coming from experienced, researchers. Why I am putting this slide over here? I want to draw your attention to this particular Indian Journal of Medical Research, which has been established in the year 1913. So, while as a country we have a culture of research and development, if you want to make a niche, a place for yourself in basic sciences, in allied sciences, or in applied sciences, you must be very well read. You must have read all the research papers relevant to that particular subject area or domain area to make an educated opinion. So here are a few articles on CRISPR that I have taken. Why? I will tell you that in my next slide. CRISPR, for those of you who are not aware, is a large genome editing technology wherein you can cut out portions of the diseased DNA, put the normal DNA so that the individual can have or lead a normal life. It's a moment of pride for me to put this here because Dr. Dr. Doudna and Dr. Charpentier have won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for their discovery of CRISPR. Now, I want to draw your attention to this article which appears here in the Financial Times. It announces the arrival of CRISPR as a mechanism or a therapeutic mode for the treatment of beta thalassemia and sickle cell anemia. Now, if you want more information about what is the technique, what experiments were carried out, which animal models were used, which protocols were followed, then the newspaper article is not going to be of any help. You will have to go back and read all the relevant research articles in the domain of CRISPR to get that information. So that was the reason of putting these two slides on CRISPR to draw your attention. So which should be your go-to databases? Your go-to databases should be PubMed, Google Scholar, Scopus, and even Web of Science. This all depends upon the accessibility that your library is giving to you as a student. Okay, so it depends on the access you have, the kind of library facilities your college or your university is, helping you access. Specifically now that we're in a pandemic mode, a lot of research institutions are redefining their library systems so that students can access research papers in real time. Okay, this is how the PubMed address looks like, and this is the scan QR code which will take you there. So what happens when you go to the PubMed homepage? Well, it shows you a big window, and what to put in this window? Well, anything that interests you, anything. Medicinal plants of Dharmanagar, DNA barcoding of medicinal plants in Dharmanagar, traditional medicine of plants in Agartala, anything that comes to your mind, the spike protein, CRISPR, anything that you want to know more about, you can type it here and we call that word as a keyword. So let's take that with an example. I hope you are with me on that. So I'm taking the example of protein kinase C. And when I type out protein kinase C, I get around 63,793 results. Now, I hope you can see it's impossible for me to go through so many research papers. So what do? I now want to draw your attention to the fact that when I put protein kinase C in Google, it also lists Wikipedia as one of the references. So the next time you use Google or Wikipedia to get scientific information, I leave this as an open-ended question for you, whether you can really trust the content that you are drawing from these two sites. So your next answer is going to be, where should we take this from? Let's explore Google Scholar. Google Scholar now gives me the advantage of giving me, research papers in the last 10 years, last 20 years, last 30 years, last 40 years, and more. Okay, so still it gives me thousands of lakhs of papers, which is impossible for me to even read just the title. What do? So I now say protein kinase C and tumor suppressor. Well, I now have 869 results, but even that is a big number for me to read and go through. So I now put the name of the author. Now I may know the full name of the author, or I may just know the first name of the author. So like you could see, somebody called out my name is Anupma Harshal, W, and somebody said Anupma Harshal Vadolikar. So it may be difficult to take my name. So if you just put A Harshal or Harshal A, you will still be able to get the references is what I'm trying to tell you. So I'm taking this as a live search. So I'm showing you here, if I just put Newton AC, I'm still getting the same 9 results. Okay. Now all of us are very different. So we may end up using different connectors. Somebody may use an and, another person will use or, and a third person may use a comma. Well, whatever connector you will use, you will still end up getting the same 9 references. Again, a gentle reminder that these are live searches. So we've done the search, we've taken a picture and we've put it here. Okay. So doesn't matter what is the thought process that you're going through, just put in your words, get the keywords, look for the research paper and read it up. Now, what if I want to know about the occurrence of diabetes mellitus? Let's take an example. Occurrence of diabetes mellitus in Dharmanagar versus that in Mumbai. It's a good thing to read, right? So if I'm looking for relevant resources on this, research papers, then I will go and make a search in accordance by putting those as the keywords. What if I want to know all the publications of a particular author? Then I will put the name of the author. And like I said, I may know the first name or the last name of the author, and that will help me get the relevant references. Okay, which takes us to the major classes of scientific literature. What are they? Research articles, review articles, commentary, and medical case reports. The chat window is open. If you're raising your hand and you have any doubt, just put out a chat window for me, chat a message for me. I'll be able to respond because I'm handling a lot of controls here. Okay, so now, today we will focus only on research articles and review articles. So here goes my next question. And my question to you is as follows. In a review article, is it work done by one scientific group? Yes, or do you think a review article reports the work done by many scientific groups? Again, I want to remind you again that this is an anonymous polling. If you're feeling shy and there's something that you want to tell me, which is not there in the poll question, you can always use the chat window and get back to me. So in a review article, is it work done by one scientific group, or do you think there are many scientific groups? Take your time. You have a minute to answer this. And I can see the voting percentage getting much better. We're almost nearing 50% for this. Yes, in a review article, is it reporting work done by one scientific group? So Gahin says review article is a collection of lots of data done by different scientific groups. Thank you, Gahin. That's a very nice attempt to put the answer in the chat window. Thank you so much for that answer. So in another 2 seconds, about 75% of us have voted. And here's the results for you. Well, about 37% of you think that yes, it is work done by one scientific group. And a majority of you think that no, it is not work done by one scientific group, but it could be work done by many scientific groups. So let me tell you the answer like I told you. Subir, thank you so much. This is just to get you thinking because we are in an online mode and I can't see you and I can't, really address you in that mechanism. So let me see, how my graphic will help you remember this. So my graphic clearly shows here that a review article is a club of research articles, right? Now, in a review article, the author or the person who's writing the review article, it actually tells you that this is an opinion piece of the authors. It tells you how they see the current literature in the field. Yes, how one person or many persons of these authors see the current literature in the field. That means it could be a thumbs up, a very neutral opinion, or a thumbs down. That means it could be biased. It could be colored by what I am thinking about the data set. So please remember that research articles are work done by one group of scientists, and in a review article, it is a club of research articles. I'm going to be using this slide again, so do remember this graphic, and I'm going to come back to this. So what are the different subsections of a research article? Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, Sujit sir. I will be answering your question. I'm noting it down. Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, Bharnika. So what are the different components of a research article? What is it divided it into? It's divided into subheadings, which are called as title, the abstract, the introduction, materials and methods, results, discussion, conclusion, and references. Well, the title is a combination of words. It's our first encounter. for a research paper, right? Because whether it's a movie, whether it's a Netflix series or a research paper, it is the first thing that gets our attention. The abstract, on the other hand, is a summary of words, which may be 150 to 250 words, right? Yes. So today I will be using this paper as a reference, which stems from Dr. Nagaraj Balasubramanian's lab. He heads the cell adhesion lab in IISER Pune, and they work on CAMs and JAMs, cell adhesion molecules and junction adhesion molecules. So if you are interested in carrying out a BSMS program, an MS PhD program, or a postdoctoral fellowship, or you're looking for research opportunities, do connect with these scientists, look at what their work is, go to these IISER websites and see what these scientists are working on, and see if it matches with your interest area to pursue a career with one of these institutions. Now, the title generally summarizes the main idea of the research paper. It briefly describes the study. Read the title carefully and ask yourself, what do I understand from this? Or do I really understand anything from this paper? The abstract, on the other hand, is the dun-dun-dun, right? It's the trailer of the paper. Now, many a times you would have seen that you see the trailer of a movie, but when you go and watch the movie doesn't deliver what the trailer has shown you. Similarly, the abstract may have tall claims, but when you read the paper, you find that the claims are not, you kind of end up and say that, oh, these claims are falsified. It's just not there in the paper. So please be wary of what's the choice you make to select a research paper. The abstract clearly states the hypothesis, goal, or aim of the study. It provides a brief overview of the methods and results. It summarizes the key results, and it provides a short conclusion. So make notes of what you understand and ask yourself, why do I want to read this paper further? Or do I want to read this paper further? Which takes us to the introduction. Now, the introduction is going to be very long, very lengthy. It's going to have lots of names. It's going to have lots of findings. Yes, but you don't have to by heart anything. Read the introduction. In many journals, it may be structured, while in many other journals, it is not structured. The introduction aims to provide a background of the topic. It contains some details about previously published studies on the same topic. It highlights important missing information. It explains why the present study was conducted, and it explains why, it may or may not provide an overall approach, but it definitely sets an aim, goal, or hypothesis along with possible objectives for the study. So whenever you read the introduction, never get bogged down by the content, by so many definitions, so many findings, but try to summarize the background in a few sentences for your own references. Why? You want to go back and discuss this with your team, with your friends, with your teachers, and then you tell them, oh, I found a new protocol here, I found a new method here, I found a new solvent here. But what was that paper? So always summarize the background of the paper for your own reference so that you can keep going back to this paper when you need to refer to it during the course of your research studies. Yes, what were the materials and methods that were used by the scientists to carry out these experiments? This will include a list of reagents, chemicals, drugs, and antibodies, the cell lines that are used, namely human cell lines, whether they are HeLa cell lines, whether they are B16 melanoma cell lines. So, disease-specific cell lines, which animals were used, were they mice, were they rats, and were human subjects involved or engaged in the study. Now, whenever, even if you're doing a survey-based research, please remember, you always need to take the consent of the people who are participating in the study, which means that whenever you make somebody fill a form, always take their signature. Why? Because if you want to use this data for publication, the publishing house is first going to ask you, do you have the consent of the participating subjects? Which means it becomes a very important criteria. Second, it also puts on you the responsibility of never to reveal the name and choices of the participants. So while you have had, XYZ answering a particular question, you are not supposed to reveal that XYZ has actually, this particular choice. So we only make generalizations that 150 people answered this, 200 people said this, 5 people said this, okay? So that's something important for you to remember. Always take the consent of people when you are making them participate in a study. I'm sure your college, university has a research or an ethics committee which does this, for an institute, And that is how you will ensure that the rights of both the researcher and the participant are protected, and your data can be published or accepted for publication. So let's see this with an example. What is the typical way of content being put into materials and methods? So here you can see fibronectin was purchased from Sigma. The catalog number has been given. For all the chemicals that have been used, the catalog number and the vendor name has been given here. What if you're using a biological material? Yes, if I'm using a GFP tag plasmid. In that case, what I do is I give the name of the scientist, his affiliation. I give the name of the scientist and their his or her affiliation, so that if anybody from anywhere in the world wants to carry out that experiment, they can procure the plasmid or the biomolecule from there and carry out their experiments. What does the methods have? The methods has a list of techniques that are used in the paper. Each technique will have the following details: the dosage, the concentration of reagents, drugs and antibodies used, a detailed description of the methodology, on how the experiment was performed, and other details like sample sizes, controls, statistical analysis, or data analysis. Okay. Now, let's take this with an example again. So here you can see cells were used, the different labelings that were carried out. They were fixed with 3.5% PFA at room temperature for 15 minutes. Okay. Now, in this case, you can see, mouse embryonic fibroblast cells were used. They were cultivated in DMEM. The medium was supplemented with 5% FBS. During the course of the experiment, they have utilized a no serum or a low serum concentration. So no serum is understandable, but low serum has been defined here as 0.2% FBS. So please remember, what may be low temperature for you in Dharmanagar at that particular time point may not be the low temperature for me in Mumbai or in Trivandrum or in Dehradun. So all you need to do is meticulously take the thermometer, measure the temperature and write it down. So it's very essential that whenever you write down methods or protocols, you actually define meticulously, saying that this was the temperature, this is what we carried out. Yes? By now, I'm sure you're wondering, why am I telling you all this? Yes? Well, I want you to answer a question telling me what is the confidence level of you as a scientist. How important is reproducibility for a scientific paper? How important is reproducibility, yes, for a scientific paper? How important do you think is reproducibility in a scientific paper? This is not a difficult question. We're all students of science. So it's something that should be part of our ethical practices. Like I've said, this is an anonymous poll. I'm going to be keeping this poll on for about a minute. Almost about 70% of us have voted. And thank you to a lot of people who are putting up the questions in the chat window. So we're going to have a very interactive Q&A section. Thank you. As soon as you have some questions, just put it in the chat window. So me and Mausam sir, we can take the questions in the end. So just don't worry about that. Okay. So there goes a minute. About 80% of us have voted. And I hope you can see here that about 81% of us feel that yes, it is very important. About 17% feel could be very, considered important, but only 2% feel that it's not very important. Let me tell you that reproducibility is a very important criteria. In case you were not aware, let me give you an example. So supposing you carry out an experiment at Dharmanagar in your college, and I want to carry out the same experiment in ICER, and it doesn't work out. So do you think that's okay? Do you think that's okay for the 2% who have written not very important? Do you think it's okay if an experiment works out in one lab but doesn't work out in another lab? I don't think it's okay, right? So I'm sure this is going to be a learning for a lot of us. So this is to, show you what happens if I just write 37 degrees. If I just write 37 degrees, this lady can hold the flask at an angle of 37 degrees, or she could assume that the flask has to be incubated at 37 degrees Celsius. So you have to always be very, very meticulous in writing down the details when you're carrying out the materials and methods or the experiments, which helps me take this opportunity to introduce you to a wonderful resource called as JOVE. This is called as Journal of Visualized Experiments. Now, you heard the name right, but there are no research papers here. There are video scrolls of research papers that are recorded and kept here for you to see how path-breaking science experiments have been performed, namely hybridization, mapping, monoclonal antibody formation, CRISPR. All these are video recorded and kept here as a resource for teachers and students to access to see how these experiments are carried out. Okay, so do visit the JOVE site and check out for yourself. You can talk to your librarian if you can be given limited access to, go and see one particular experiment, or given a time window for the students to, kind of peekaboo and see these experiments. You're going to enjoy it, how robotic PCR works, how they carry out, multiple platings, 3,000 plates when you're doing mapping and things like that. Okay. So this is also for you to tell you, this is an opportunity for you, for those of you who are students in science, but also very creative, very good at making videos, very good at making creative content, that this could be calling for you in terms of a career opportunity. Okay. Mohammed Shakil says, what is reproducibility? Reproducibility means if you carry out an experiment in one lab, the same result should come in another lab, same or similar. You can't say that this experiment is working in my lab, but it is not working in your lab. Okay, so that is reproducibility. That means any experiment you carry out in one lab should be able to be reproduced in another lab in the same manner. Okay, you may, like I said, you may not get the same result, but you may get a similar result. But you can't have saying that this works out best in our lab, but it doesn't work out in another lab. Okay, so what comes in the results section? Well, the concentration of protein A was found to be higher than that of protein B. The volume of the test tumor was smaller as compared to the control. So each section has a statement of what was found after conducting the experiment. Read each section along with the respective figure and table. And does the result section answer all the questions is what you must ask here. Yes. So what do you expect to see in the results? Well, different kind of data. What kind of data? Depends on the kind of study, the data may vary. Should I be able to understand all the data? Well, the answer is no. You will not be able to understand all the data. What do I do if I don't understand all the data? The answer is read more research papers. That's what scientists do. So let me give you my example. When I share, Prajna, I will be explaining this again. So just don't worry. Okay. Yes. So when I am reading one research paper, I end up reading 3 or 4 more research papers to understand that one research paper. This is, a general way in which we conduct ourselves when we are carrying out research. Okay. Now, for those of you who have got lost in the reproducibility question, let me tell you, reproducibility means that if I do, isolation of chlorophyll and in my lab in IISER Pune, and I write that protocol or I write that method of how to do isolation of chlorophyll, and I give it to you in Dharmanagar, your college department to do it. If you also carry out the same experiment, then you should also be able to isolate chlorophyll from green leaves. Okay, so reproducibility means if I'm able to carry out the experiment in one lab, I should be able to mimic it. I should be able to carry out the same experiment in another lab, getting the same or similar results. Okay, so let's take through these examples and not focus on the science here. Here you can see the different treatments that were carried out for the cells, the labelings of microtubule, actin, and centrosome, the labelings of 5 micrometer, the scale, and middle plane and upper plane. This here in this slide is a protein profile. You can see the qualitative expression and you can see the quantitative expression here. So in the qualitative, you can see the Western blot, which has got the molecular weights. And here you can see the quantitative expression where you can see a clear difference between SA and SUSP. Well, did you just believe me? Never do that. Always look for this star sign or this asterisk sign to see that yes, this data has been statistically analyzed, and so you can believe this data. Okay. Another microscopic observation here where the scale is given, the number of time it has been magnified is given, and n equals to 34 has been mentioned here. What does this mean? The n equals to 34 means that this is the number of samples that were analyzed in this particular treatment. Okay. Could you please say about, okay, Sanchari, I've taken your question. I will come back to it later. Okay. Now this is a schematic method of, expressing your results. So here you can see there are no big numbers. There's no big table, but it definitely shows an effect on the Golgi, namely promoting Golgi function, reduced Golgi function, basal Golgi function. And what is present here in the red is called as legend, which describes the results. This is a scientific illustration where instead of the author describing, take the left shank of the mouse, inject into the bar 8 cells, raise the tumor, salvage the tumor, sacrifice the animal. So I hope you understand that here by giving the picture, it builds confidence in the researcher as to how to see this. Yes, how to go about this particular experiment, even if the text is there or not there. Okay, this is also called as protocol validation, so that you know this is exactly how you carry out this particular methodology. This here represents the real-time mice scans, the excised tumors, the day 0, day 5, day 12 images, and this is a quantitative expression of the results that have been obtained. Okay? Yes. Now, this is patient data. Well, in patient data, there are no pictures, there are no images, but what it tells you is each dot here represents the IgG levels of the different patients that are there and in response to this particular experimental setup. So this is just to tell you how results appear different in research papers. Okay. Of course, you have more specialized data, which is proteomics data, and you have even more specialized data, which is genomics data. So ask yourself, are the results sufficient to prove the aim, goal, or hypothesis of the study? If yes, then you should be able to, accept the paper or not. You already know that in the introduction, at the end of the introduction, you had the aim, goal, or hypothesis. So see if there is coherence. See what they have announced and see what their results are hinting at and see if there is coherence between the findings that they have got. Now, at this moment, why was the concentration of protein A higher than that of protein B? Why was the volume of the test smaller than that of the control? Did your drug, did your metabolite, did your dipeptide, did your extract show some effect on the propagation of the tumor? So that is something you should be discussing and putting down in your discussion. It's namely interpretation of your obtained results. A comparison of previously published studies, if there are any, the strengths and limitations of the study, and future implications of the study, if they are. Yes, in the conclusion, if your study has a conclusion, then you put it at the end of the discussion section. Many papers will have this and many papers will not have this. Okay. Now, this is also, a summary of obtained results. So I think somebody is talking about protocol validation. I told you that this is like, giving you a schematic or giving you a representation of how the experiment is carried out. So I put a picture there of the mouse where the mouse was being injected and the tumor was being raised. So instead of you having to read 2 paragraphs, you've seen the picture and that helps you, how to go about that particular experiment. So at this moment, I have a question for you. How are you going to select a research paper to read? Many of you may not have read a research paper. So take this, opportunity for you to tell me, how will you select a research paper to read? How will you select that this is the right paper? How will you decide that this is the right paper you want to read? Yes, anybody? How will you select that this is the right research paper, or how will you decide that this is how I want to go about selecting a research paper? Thank you, Taisha. Taisha says by reading the abstract. That's a good start. Pranjal Shrestha, I'm listening to your questions and I will be taking all these questions towards the end. Yes, anybody else? How will you select that this is the research paper that you're going to read? How will you select it from, let's say, by reading the abstract and conclusion? Yes, Sanchari. By reading the abstract and introduction, says Shrestha. Raj says reading the abstract. Bijoya says by keywords. Fantastic, Bijoya, because how will you go to the abstract? You will actually have to first see the keywords, put in the keywords, and then get a research paper. Thank you, Bijoya, for that lead over there. By reading the abstract and introduction, we see the introduction. You will see the introduction only after you put the keywords, only after you are by reading the abstract as well as conclusion. A lot of you have straight away gone to the abstract, so you've got the paper. My question here is very clear. My question says, how will you decide the paper to read? How will you get to the right paper? By checking all the keywords, by checking the abstract and title. Thank you, Kamalata. By seeing if I can properly understand the literature. Well, okay, I will take that answer. Tina Moy says by reading the abstract and keywords, well done. Debolina says by reading the abstract and conclusion along with the aims and objectives. Debolina, how will you reach the paper is my question, but nevertheless, well tried. Uttamasha says reading the title and abstract on the basis of number of citations. Sani Das, fantastic. Durbadal says by reading the title, keywords, methodology. Thank you. Pranjal says by reading the results and discussion. Abhishek, first is the keywords, then is whether it's peer reviewed or not. Thank you, Abhishek. I can see, and I hope your teachers are also seeing a lot of intelligence answers here. Sri Rupa by reading the title and abstract. Relevancy of the paper. Yes. Is it relevant to my topic or am I just speaking any non-specific paper? By reading the title, says Saurabh. Gahin says to Google Scholar, search for interested area, then reading the title and keywords. Thank you, Gahin. Thank you so much. I'm so overwhelmed. This is the first time I have got so many answers. And believe me, my inbox is still kind of taking these answers. So thank you so much, Balram. Saini, by checking the source of the paper, by title and abstract. So, okay, by now you have got an idea of what I'm looking for as an answer. And also the most important point, do you all agree as participants that there is no common way to do this? Each one of us is having our own defining moment. Yes, Avradeep says title and abstract. Shivananda says by reading the aim and conclusion, by checking the methodology, availability of materials. Yes, Dibakar says abstract and titles. Thank you. I have 4,700 messages. I'm going through that clearly. So by the time you're answering this question, I have another question for you. And that's supposedly, how many scientific papers do you read in a month? If you've not read a single research paper in the lockdown period that is extended from last March till date, you can just be honest with me. There is no penalty. I'm really excited to see all the answers while you're taking a minute to answer these this poll. Dishari says checking the keywords and abstracts. Pratik by checking the year when it was published. Thank you, Pratik. That's an amazing answer. Abantika by checking the keywords. Finding out about what I would like to read. Yes, your interest has to match what you want to find out. Keyword, abstract, and conclusion. Shweta reading the title, reading the keywords. Samprita says number of citations. Intelligent answer, Samprita. By reading the abstract with the keywords, by reading the keywords, checking the number of views. I will assure myself by looking at the reference in the source of the research paper. Avradeep. Thank you, Arindam. Seeing the keywords and methodology. Okay, so I still have 5,100 messages by reading the title. Nayan Mukta says articles information. Tamanna says reading Google Scholar and PubMed in your chosen topics. Dell says citations. Well, Sambit reads about 100 papers a month. Sambit, that's amazing. I'm quite happy to know that. How many words? Okay. Sujit Ranjan Dasji, I will answer your question by checking all the keywords. Follow me. Thank you so much. So I'm stopping the poll here, and I hope you can see there are about 25% people who have been very, very honest to tell me that they've not read a single research paper. Kudos to you. Do let me know if you're enthused at the end of my session to start reading the research paper. Not immediately, ekdam se abhi nahi, maybe in the next 1 week or 15 days or in the few months to come. Are you excited? Do you think you should read a research paper? There are 31% who have read one research paper. There are 27% who have read up to 5, and there are 17% who have read more than 5. So thank you so much for that valuable share. And my inbox is still streaming with the answers. I'm so sorry I've not read all of them, but I am going to be reading all of them. Tamanna says checking the renowned publishers group for the specific topics. Thank you, Tamanna, for that answers. And I hope you can see there is no defined moment or single way to read the to read a research paper, to select a research paper. Thank you very much for those answers, and what an intelligent crowd. I'm feeling so overwhelmed to address you. How to read a research paper in 30 minutes. Now, some of you will take more time, some of you will take less time, but doesn't matter. Give it to yourself. Take the title, read it in 1 minute, read the abstract in 10 minutes, quickly read the results in 10 minutes, and quickly read the conclusion in 9 minutes. This should help you decide whether you should read the full paper or not. Sometimes the title says something, not there in the result. The abstract proclaims something, not there in the conclusion. So I hope you said, those of you who said title, abstract, result, conclusion, give full marks to yourself. But while you're reading a research paper, please underline. What is this underlining? Take a pencil and underline. This is what we did in school. This is what we did in college, that whenever we are carrying out some studies, we will always underline a definition, name of a scientist, a finding, a difference between eukaryote and prokaryote, and so on. Yes. So whenever you are underlining or highlighting something, you are actually communicating with the text. So what is annotation? So I find the name Carrie Mullis, and you know what I do? I underline it and I put a star sign in the bracket. And what happens, when I flick my book, or I'm discussing with my friends, or I'm discussing with my teachers, I flick the book, and as soon as I see the star, it rings a bell that Carrie Mullis discovered PCR. So annotation helps you increase the recall value of the text. I hope you will remember these 2 points. Even in an online lecture, when teacher is teaching, always make your notes. Only then your brain will be able to remember. Otherwise, it will just evaporate as soon as the lecture is over. Okay. So coming back to my slide of a research article and review article. Please don't worry, students. I know you're super excited. Just about 5 more slides to go, and then we are going to be discussing in this interactive panel. Yes, a review article is a club of research articles. What if you could read many research articles and make your own connections? What if you could link molecules and processes between papers? What if you could keep all these connections for you to use when needed? Wouldn't it be great if you had a tool to do this? Well, you now have such a tool, and that's called as Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative. This is a project which is open to students, faculty, and researchers. They can join and contribute in this project. As a student, you can join Manav and contribute by annotating or highlighting important information in scientific articles. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce to you the Citizen Science Partnership Project, Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative, funded by Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, co-funded by Persistent Systems, and jointly executed in collaboration is by National Center for Cell Science, NCCS, Indian Institute of Science Education Research, IISER Pune, and all the backend support is being provided for by Persistent Systems. That's our website, manav, manav.gov.in. Please join us, make a team. This is a teacher-led activity. So, you can have a teacher having a team of 6 to 8 students, contribute by curating and capturing scientific data, get certified, get recognition through our rewards program, and create an impact through your curation, contribution, and collaboration, learning and growing in the process. Your principal, sir, and Dr. Mosham very clearly highlighted the objectives of this program. And so I'm not going to sound repetitive, but let me tell you where we are. Well, right now, the platform is ready to be launched in the next few weeks, or maybe 4 to 8 weeks. It's a state-of-the-art platform. It's like, you just take your cursor over the text and the text gets annotated. So it's superb. The experience is amazing. Right now, we're in the last lap of the onboarding. So I had asked a question in the registration form where we said that, do you want to be part of Manav? And many of you have answered yes. So I will be adding your names to the database. Now, what happens once you have onboarded? Well, once the platform is operational, we will send you research papers and you will be annotating the papers in your space at your pace. That means in your house, on your computer, in your library computer, along with the primary education that you are taking. Well, let me give you the good news. We have more than 2 lakh papers on skin that we have downloaded, which we are going to give you for annotation. Why? Because we are going in a systematic manner, taking one organ at a time. Yes. Now, what are these papers based on? I know Dr. Mosham is going to ask me, what are the subjects here? The subjects are physiology. The subjects are microbiology, biochemistry, bioinformatics, medicine, pharmacy. A lot of these topics will be given out to the students to annotate. So I hope, we are currently absolutely at the right time, at the right point. We've had this session. And if we had delayed this, we probably have missed a chance to, onboard many of you. Like I said, I'm not sounding repetitive, but I just want you to remember the first point, that it will be assimilating all available macro and micro level information from scientific and public databases. scientific literature and public databases. Why do we want students to do it? Well, we have a selfish agenda. When students read research papers, they actually read data in real time. They get more knowledgeable. They are the human resource of the country. And therefore, we are actually empowering you to inculcate this practice. Okay. Make a team at your college and get going with Manav. This is how our website looks like. And when you click here, you're going to have students interested in starting a Manav club, faculty interested in starting a Manav club at their college, becoming a reviewer for Manav, becoming an expert reviewer for Manav. So teachers, let me tell you, this is going to be a very, super opportunity for you to play a dual role. You will be a reviewer and you will also be a team leader. So as a team leader, you can tell your students that this is an annotation which is frivolous and this is an annotation which is good. And this will also be a process of review. Okay. So all the annotations that you submit will be going through a process of review and expert review. And then they will be added to a vast entity list. Are you ready for a small exercise? Here is a sentence that I'm giving you, and I want you to tell me if, what is important in this sentence. So cetrimide is a drug used for the treatment of seborrheic dermatitis. Cetrimide is a drug used for the treatment of seborrheic dermatitis. What will you underline or annotate in this sentence? Cetrimide is a drug. So my last question had got 100 answers. So Dr. Mausam is, super excited, and I'm obviously on top of the world. Yes, in this sentence, cetrimide is a drug used for seborrheic dermatitis. What are you going to underline? So Gahin says name of the disease. Pratik says name of the drug and the name of the disease. Gahin says, thank you, Gahin. Thank you, Pratik. Thank you, AG. Neji says name of the drug and the disease. Subir, dermatitis. Ankit says name of the drug and the disease. So now, by now the cat is out of the bag. You know, it has to be the name of the drug and the name of the disease. Fantastic. So I hope you enjoyed this session, and I really hope you enjoyed this whole process. And I really hope that while you're on the Manav platform, you're going to enjoy the whole process. Don't get bogged down by the level of the paper. The level of the paper may be high, it may be medium, it may be low, but look for what you understand, get two definitions and annotate, live on the platform. So thank you, Sanchari. Thank you, Durbadal. Thank you so much. Name of the disease. So what happens when you give us these annotations? These annotations will be added to a vast entity list, which is going to be present backend. And this entity list will consist of name of drugs, name of diseases, name of microscopic techniques, name of, different observations. And we will be looking at connections of your observations between papers and making them available as a public database. Okay, so that's going to be my last question for the day. And my question is as follows. Would you want to use a tool like Manav if it is freely available? Yes, if your answer is yes, then my next question would be, would you want to participate in an activity like this? Thank you so much. A lot of you are answering on the chat window also. So I'm keeping the poll on. I'm sure the answer here is yes. So I doubt if I should really continue this poll. Thank you so much for this overwhelming response. Right now, we are there on these social media handles, namely on Twitter, namely on Facebook, namely on LinkedIn and on Instagram. So let me tell you, please connect with us on our Facebook, and there's something really, exciting waiting for you there. We hold these data science webinar series, which are called as DSWS. Okay. Now, on the data science webinar series, we've had 30 sessions till now. We've had topics on data science, which is by Gitanjali Yadav, by Dr. Ganesh Baglar, by Lipi Tukral. These are scientists from the IIIT in Delhi, the Indraprastha Institute of Information Technology. And believe me, amazing talks of 45-minute modules. They are just so interesting. So while you decide which movie to watch or which Netflix series to watch, just go to our Manav YouTube channel and check out these lectures. Maybe one of them will give you a career lead. Yes, to go there. And just as my lecture was interesting, I can see a lot of my feedback, coming back here in the chat window. You'll find these lectures amazing. It will help you understand where is a place for you. What is the place for you? Are you really gearing up in that direction? And is there a career opportunity that you want to pick up and do your college proud or do your department proud? So thank you very much. After this session, I'm going to be sharing a link which will also have a short video module of my talk. For many of you, the internet connection may not have been stable, so there will be a small video module. In case you missed a part of my talk, please don't worry. Yes, Aniket, I'm going to come to your questions. Don't worry, just give me a minute. So in this stressful situation that you already are students, we do not want you to get bogged down. There are about 248 of us who have participated. Please do attempt these tests. We only want to understand what is the level of English you can understand or read, and also were you able to pay attention in my lecture. They're very simple questions, and this will entitle you to getting a certificate which is signed by ICER, NCCS, and Persistent, for your keeps. So hoping to have many of you on the Manav platform, sign up and be a part of the Manav initiative. And like I said, many of you have not read research papers, so you're supposed to get back with an answer to me. Are you feeling motivated enough to start reading a research paper if you have not read a research paper? If you answered 0, that you've not read a research paper at all. So there is some help for you. So there are a lot of research papers in the public domain. There's so much noise, right? Which are the research papers that you should read? Which are those signals which are read by doctors, by therapeutics, by scientists, by policymakers? Write to us at sitewheat@gmail.com and we will share those papers with you. Okay. Thank you so much for being such a lovely audience, and I'm just so excited to see all your questions. I hope Mosham sir is here, and I will go back to the chat window to check out all the questions. If there are any particular questions that you'd like to dash to me right now that I may have missed out, you can definitely put that in the chat window. I'm going back to the chat window to check out all the questions in case I have missed out any in the beginning.
Ma'am, Pratik Shah wants to ask you that under what category does a meta-analysis fall?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mosham, for taking those questions. So see, let me tell you, in a review, you're going to be reading a few papers of your interest and making a summary. Okay, Pratiksha, thank you so much for that question. I just read it last night because I had another talk for FDP on Monday, Tuesday. So in a review article, you will just read papers of that are driven by your interest. Okay. In a meta-analysis, you will systematically look, you will actually draw out a rubric that I'm going to be comparing these 8 papers or these 4 papers, depending on the methodology that they have used, the model system that they have selected, the findings that they have got, the economic impact of the findings that they have got. Like, for example, I can tell you, the economic impact of having a toilet in a facility where there are 20 or 25 people. Now, for us as a common man, I could never imagine that it can have an economic impact, but yes, it has an economic impact. So a meta-analysis is a systematic review where you make a rubric. Okay, you make a rubric. So you say point number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you compare paper A, paper B, paper C, paper D, and paper E. So a common parametric analysis and comparing paper A, B, and C, and D. Okay, it could be 5 papers, it could be 6 papers. So I hope I have been able to answer your question. Pratik says, review article or research article, Pranjal, there is no comparison of a review article. So if I want to find out more about something that I'm interested in, it could just be a simple thing like how to make good Bengan bharta, right? So what will you say? A review article is better or a research article is better? It depends on what is easily assimilable by me. What is it that I understand? Many a times a review article can be very heavy for a student because there is a lot of definition, a lot of factual data there. It tends to, you tend to lose the attention of the person who is reading it. Okay. So it's very difficult to say which is best. Whichever is most easily assimilable, from where you can get a lot of information, that is something that I would recommend for you to read. Okay. Is there a website that can summarize the articles? Well, right now there is no website that can summarize the articles. Most of the summaries are supposed to be drawn by a person who's reading those articles, because it's depending on the perspective that you are drawing. What is the process of extraction of secondary data from published article? Well, this is not relevant to my talk today, but nevertheless, when you're talking of extraction of secondary data, it clearly means you are going to be either extrapolating that data for your PhD. It depends on the purpose. So what is the process? There's a definite process, Balram, and I can probably write to you in person. If you write a mail to me, I can share a few relevant research papers for that. It can't be simply answered in a question like this or an answer like that. There is a definite process of how you extract secondary data from published articles, and it's definitely relevant for a lot of people who are doing their PhD and their postdoctoral fellowships. So I can share the process with you maybe in person. How will I join Manav? Well, if you've already said yes in your questionnaire, then I will just add your name to the Manav database. If you've still not said yes, then when I send you the test, you can say, yes, I want to join Manav, and I will add your name to the database. Okay, I'm just going to, are there any other questions that we have missed out? Would you please say statistical and okay, statistical analysis, including statistical tool part in research. Well, again, this is out of the preview of the talk today, but let me tell you, when you are looking at statistical analysis or a statistical tool to use in research, it depends on what kind of research you're carrying out, right? In some kind of data sets, just having the mean value may be enough. In some kind of data sets, an average may not be good because the average kind of reduces where you got 0 and 10 in your data sets, right? So this is clearly dictated by the kind of study that you're carrying out, okay? But statistical analysis has to be carried out. Otherwise, it's like saying 3 people ran the race, 1 came first, 1 came second, 1 came third. So accepting something like this may be very difficult. I mean, putting confidence in a study like this may be a very difficult attribute to do, okay? So having your data statistically analyzed requires that you have repetitive results, requires that you have analyzed a large data set. And when I say analyzing the large data set, it means that from a huge population, if you want to extrapolate your results that applies to everybody, then your data should be a representative data. No, you can't analyze 2 people or 5 people survey and then say, yes, the entire population thinks like that. Okay, so Sanchari, I hope I've been able to answer your questions. There are a few more. How to choose a good paper in the context of impact factors? Well, Abhishek, I don't think you can choose. Yes, Prajna, I will explain Jove to you again. How do you choose a good paper with an impact factor? You don't choose paper which have got good impact factors, Abhishek. If you go to PubMed, you will get a lot of good references. Okay. And when you're seeing those references, obviously, if it's on PubMed, it's coming in a good, I won't say impact factor journal, but it is coming in a good peer-reviewed or a reference journal. So I don't think right now is your time to bother about impact factors. If you, if you are, it's like saying, many universities define that MSc students will read papers of high impact factors, BSc students will read students of lower impact factors. That's more or less to tell you the difficulty level of the research paper. Let me be very honest with you if you're asking me as a student. Okay, so I would not say that this would be, how can one access the Manav lab? There is no Manav lab. Once you say yes to be participating in the Manav platform, then we will be adding your name and we will be giving you papers to annotate, or we will be recruiting you or giving you the responsibility as a team leader or a reviewer or an expert reviewer. When we read research paper first, we noticed an abstract and keyword in the cover picture that also attracts. Yes, no problem. Divakar, your answer was absolutely correct. That's the first thing that gets you attracted, right? I told you also that the keywords and the abstract is the first thing that's going to get you attracted. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. When you read the conclusion of a scientific article, is it very important and not? And what is the important? Of course, Pranjal, the conclusion of a scientific paper is very important because once the scientists have, interpreted the results, then they conclude. So the conclusion of a scientific paper is very relevant. It cannot be said that, okay, now this is a conclusion, but we don't agree to this. It's not like that. Obviously, there is a results section to support that. They have inferred based on the results, and then they have concluded based on their inferences. Okay. So Pranjal, I'm going to tell you more about Jove. Jove is a journal of visualized experiments where you have video recording of how the experiment is carried out. Okay. So that will tell you how robotic PCR is carried out, how hybridization is carried out, how you actually make the additions, how you incubate the plates, how you do a cell count, how you do labeling of the cells. So everything that is there in words in a research paper, you will actually get to see it over there. Okay, so it's like a video recording. Yeah. So Mohsen sir, if there are any other questions that I have missed out, and if you think you can.
Ma'am, I have one question.
Sure, sir.
My colleague also asked the same.
Sure.
Dr. Sujit Ranjan Das, he was asking
Yeah.
that nowadays a serious issue has come in this publishing research articles, that is plagiarism. So how can we avoid? Because if we write even simple sentences, the software says it has plagiarized, but that is not true. So how can we avoid and get rid of this plagiarism?
See, plagiarism is actually more an issue if you are copy pasting from somewhere and not sharing due credit to them. So, if possible, Mosam sir, in my email, I will just share one single slide which talks about what is quotes, unquote, what is plagiarism, what is to give due credit, so that it helps you. Essentially, what happens, I'll tell you, plagiarism is a software put in place to avoid taking up content from one person and not sharing due credit for him. If you're quoting the paper, and also let me tell you, this is a culture. The moment you tell a person that you have to publish a paper, the best way to do it is go to the internet, select 10 papers, copy paste the data sets from there, copy paste even the writing sentences from there, and then saying this is all my data and I have published it. So this is happening, okay? And even if you replace the data, even the text can be just picked up from an original research paper, which could be very detrimental or harmful to the original author. So in plagiarism, if the thoughts are yours, if you are thinking aloud, then believe me, it's not going to get detected. And in plagiarism also, let me be very honest with you, they are picking up words, a combination of words, which is going to be, which is picked up exactly, I would say in toto, that means exactly verbatim from the source, which obviously it's going to detect. So it's like a software that detects it. So what you have to ensure is what you are thinking, you refine that and write it in exact words. We have done that, right? We've done that in grade 6, grade 8, how I spent my summer vacation, a letter to my grandfather. So we've all written originals, right? We don't really need to pick up stuff from a scientific paper and write it there. So you have to just read papers, see their style of writing, and then put it in your words. So then it's definitely not going to be picked up by a plagiarized or a plagiarism software. I can vouch for it. Plagiarism software is in place to ensure that you've not picked it up verbatim from somewhere and you've placed it here. So I hope I have been able to answer your question.
Yeah, excuse me, ma'am. I am Dr. Sudipto Shah from Amity University, Noida.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sudipta. Yeah.
So basically what I wanted to ask you that plagiarism, okay, you cannot copy paste from places, but it happens that the difficult part is that you cannot even take from your own paper.
Yeah, that's a difficult part. That's a difficult part. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I thought, since you're at Amity, I mean, since we are at IISER, like I told you, we have a lot of systems in place. So we have a lot of help from our library, which helps us in how to put together papers, how to, nowadays, of course, you even have professionals. So maybe you can definitely put it up as a team effort in Amity, where you could have a centralized, division, which is helping you in science communication, which helps you in writing the papers and ensuring that the content is good, in ensuring that the English language, like see many researchers, like for example, I have interacted with many people from the Northeast region, from the North, which is Punjab, Haryana, where the child is not able to speak good English, but the scientific temperament is very high. Right. So if you have a division which helps you putting in words what the science has been carried out. See, if I can't speak English, I'm thinking in Hindi and I'm writing in English. And obviously they both don't mean the same thing. I hope you understand that when I'm thinking, I'm thinking in my native language and I'm being penalized because my English conveys, the authors completely say this, whereas there is something else that I want to say. So maybe having a division, that's how we at IISERs have a centralized division, where they help us in the English component of it, the grammatical corrections, the way it needs to go out in a paper. So that really helps ensuring quality. It definitely helps maintaining quality. It definitely helps a researcher. Like for example, if I'm somebody who is Hindi speaking and I can't write good English for a research paper, once I have got help from this scientific communication department, my second paper becomes better because I know that these are the mistakes I don't have to make.
Absolutely.
So these are the kind of support systems that you need to work at, I would say at the corporate level or at your academic, advancement level in big colleges, in government colleges. You either have somebody on contract working on freelance where you can, actually pay him. And I'm sure all of us write project grants. When you write project grant, DBT doesn't tell you that don't give money, but DBT tells us give us a head. give us a head. So you can definitely say sorry, but ours is a place where we need help with the English language. So we need an English communicator on contract. You could keep
Right.
15K, 25K for writing 3 or 4 papers. And I'm
Right.
sure Dr. Saha, you will agree. Once you've got help on one paper, it becomes like a blueprint. It's
Yeah.
easier for you to write the next paper and so on.
Exactly.
So definitely having things like this in place definitely helps us. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going back again to the chat section to see, can you avoid copyright issues? Yes, definitely copyright issues have to be avoided. You need to work at, like I said, get a body in your university, in your information, in your library section to ensure that this kind of protection is there for whether that's content coming from your desk or whether there's content coming from somebody else's desk, so that you don't infringe or there's no conflict of interest that is generated. Are detecting, yes, the plagiarism detecting softwares are quite reliable. We generally suggest DupliChecker, which takes about 1,000 words per search, and you can do multiple searches on it. They're quite reliable. They're definitely reliable. At MHRD, we use DupliChecker because that's a free software, and of course MHRD has their own software also that may not be available in the public domain. I want to ask, how can anyone choose a good article in PubMed or from the internet? Abhishek, once you go to the PubMed, there is no good or bad. You have to read the abstract and that will build confidence if that is the article relevant to what you're looking for or not. Okay, and in PubMed also you will be able to see the quality of the article. You will make out that this is an exceptional article, this is an article which has got a lot of information, the information is validated, the data has been analyzed well. So don't worry, once you start reading papers, this will build confidence. Okay, yeah, so can I request all the panelists to just have their video on for a minute so we could pose for a group photograph, if that's okay with everybody? All the panelists who are here. Is your principal sir still around? Or thank you, Jayita. Thank you, Dr. Ankan. Thank you. Yeah, just a minute. I will just. Thank you so much. I will be sharing all these photographs with you, and these pictures will go on Twitter so that DBT can be tagged that we're also working on Sunday. So I hope this is okay with all of you. Yeah, thank you very much. Over to you, Mausham sir. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm sure that from this interaction of the participants, we get to know how involved they were in your talk. And that is a very nice thing to have over here. So, and I'm also not, it has ended all of a sudden. I wanted it to continue more because it was so informative that I wanted it never to end. But since we have time constraint, we have to end this session. Well, so I once again want to thank you, madam, for such informative deliberation. Indeed, we have been flooded with lots of important information on scientific writing during this short session. And I'm sure our students who are the knowledge power of our country has gained immensely from this session. They will find it easier to learn how to read and write scientific article because of this session. And I'm sure it will help our students on how to engage themselves and contribute towards constructing a comprehensive map of the human body, Manav Atlas project. And our students also can directly contribute towards generating from macro to micro level information, which will be incorporated in the Human Atlas Initiative Manav project, which is going to start very soon. So with these words, I would like to hand over the platform to our Secretary, Teachers Council of Government Degree College, Dharmanagar, Dr. Ankan Sinha, to deliver the vote of thanks. So, sir, can you please?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Visible too?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Mausham sir?
Yes, yes, sir. You're absolutely audible.
Okay. Thank you. So, a very good afternoon to all of you. I am Dr. Ankan Sinha, Secretary, Teachers Council, and Assistant Professor of Government Degree College, Dharmanagar, North Tripura. On behalf of entire organizing committee and my personal behalf, would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to the inaugurator of this program, Sri Gautam Das sir, Principal in Charge, Government Degree College, Dharmanagar, North Tripura, for sharing his valuable time over here. I would also like to give special thanks to the resource person and a very renowned educationist of our country, Dr. Anupama Harshal W, consultant, science communication and public engagement, Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative, for providing us this wonderful and need-based training and project awareness session on how to read scientific literature and introduction to Manav, the Human Atlas Initiative. So thank you once again, madam. It was really very informative as well as very lively too. And we are very much hopeful to have this kind of program or training session in time to time in future also. So as we are in our curriculum, we are having this kind of project which is based on research. So thank you, madam.
Thank you.
I would like, oh, madam. I would be telling in my duty if I will not thank the funding agency, DBT, and the entire team of Persist System, NCCS, and ISER Pune for arranging the extraordinary program for every one of us. So I would like to thank all the academician and professional and faculty of our college, that is Government Degree College, as well as from different parts of our nation for having this program. I would also like to thank all the students and participants of our college and the participants from different corners of India for their patience hearing. At the last but not the least, I would like to thank all the support staff without whom this program would not be the successful one, especially the coordinator of this program, Dr. Mosham Bhattacharya sir, for continuous effort. So thank you. Before that, I would like to give you one message that is very important, that please be safe and be protected and be at your home. Follow the guideline given by our government. So be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mossam. And I'm so overwhelmed by the responses. There are a few questions that I've left unanswered, but they have my email address. So if there's anything in particular, they can definitely write to me. I have taken as many questions as I could, so I hope I have done justice to the time allocated to me. Thank you very much for this interaction, and really indebted to Government College Dharmanagar for having given me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with your kind permission, I will put the meeting to an end. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.